Parshas Chukas, Tovshin Ayin Tes. Now, over the past couple of weeks, I actually wanted somehow to get into the shir to talk a little bit about Rabbi Trank, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. And this week, when I was just preparing the shir, and as the shir was going along, I all of a sudden realized that this shir is totally about what Rabbi Trank really represented. And you will see as we get into the theme that we discussed this week, just really how apropos it is. And part of this week's Parsha speaks about the Mei Meriva. The Mei Meriva was that Klal Yisrael had complained that they wanted water, and Hashem had told Moshe Rabbeinu to speak to the rock, and Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock, and then there was water. And we know once that episode transpired, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu ultimately that Moshe Rabbeinu would not be the one to lead Klal Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael. And the Medrash in Parshas Chanan tells us a very, very interesting thing. That when Moshe Rabbeinu, we know Parshas Chanan, Moshe Rabbeinu was being mispalel, Moshe Rabbeinu was davening to Hashem to be given the opportunity to enter Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu asked Hashem, why am I being punished for saying about Klal Yisrael, Shimu no HaMoirim? Moshe Rabbeinu referred to Klal Yisrael as the rebellious ones. And Hashem was not very happy with that. Kaviyachal, Hashem didn't want that Moshe Rabbeinu should speak about Klal Yisrael with those words to call them rebellious. So Moshe Rabbeinu asks Hashem, why am I being punished for saying Shimu no HaMoirim? He said, Hashem, didn't you also say Lemishmeres La'ois Livnei Meri? Didn't you, Hashem, also refer to Klal Yisrael as B'nai Meri? Didn't you refer to them also as rebellious ones? The word that represents being rebellious. So Moshe Rabbeinu was saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you also, Kaviyachol, referred to the Klal Yisrael as rebellious people. Why am I getting this huge punishment that I cannot go into Eretz Yisrael? But what we do see from this Maimar Chazal is that actually the main part of the chet of Moshe Rabbeinu, because we would normally think that the main part was that Moshe Rabbeinu lifted his hand and he hit the rock. But we see from Chazal, from the Medrash, that what was the main point here, well, the main problem was that Moshe Rabbeinu referred to his flock, he referred to Klal Yisrael as rebellious ones. And the Meikar Chet was not the actual smiting of the rock. And really, Rashi in the Gemara Masechta Sanhedrin Daf Kuf Aleph Amud Beis tells us that Sheba'avoin She'omar Shimu no HaMoirim, because of that sin that Moshe Rabbeinu said Shimu no HaMoirim, Nenash V'loi nichnas l'Eretz Yisrael. Rashi tells us straight out that is the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu could not go into Eretz Yisrael. The Ramban too, if you take a look at the Ramban also has a whole arichos about this. So really the question, Nesivos Shalom asks, the question that needs to be asked over here is, what was the big issue? What's so bad about calling it Moshe Rabbeinu? Let's say he actually felt that Klal Yisrael was being a little bit rebellious at that point. What's so bad about saying Shimu no HaMoirim? Listen, rebellious people, why would that elicit such a punishment as Moshe Rabbeinu not being able to take Klal Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael? And the Nesivos Shalom answers this with an insight, and this is really the point that I would like to bring out tonight. The Nesivos Shalom answers with an insight as to what a leader is, what a leader really should be, and how a leader is supposed to relate to his congregation or Talmidim. The connection between a manhig and the kahal, the connection between the leader and the congregants needs to be, says in Nesivos Shalom, it needs to be a relationship like the guf and the neshama. That close, that tight. And there needs to be an absolute trust in one for the other, where the leader has to believe implicitly in the congregation, and the congregants need to believe implicitly in the leader. And in our case, Klal Yisrael needs to believe that their leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, or whoever their leader may be at that time, can raise them up from the depths of despair and any low level of ruchnius. You need to believe that no matter where you are, you have a leader that can get you out of it. You have a leader that can raise you up. And it is that trust that actually gives the manhig, gives the leader the strength to go and be mashpia on Klal Yisrael. And vice versa too. The manhig needs to believe implicitly in the congregation, in his congregants. That the leader has to know that, yes, of course, people do things wrong. People slip up. People do things that are wrong. But they remain beautiful in their roots. The manhig has to believe that, yes, people do things wrong. But afal pi shechata, even though they do an Avera, Yisraelu. He is still a Yid, he is still a part of Klal Yisrael, and deep down in his roots, he always remains beautiful. You do something wrong, but that doesn't represent who you are, and that a Yid can always come back. A Yid is always precious, and that was really the lesson that Rabbi Trank taught every person that ever came into contact with him. Rabbi Trank believed in his congregation. He believed in his Talmidim, and he always believed that no matter what you're doing, and no matter what he sees in front of his face right now, and no matter where you may be, but that doesn't represent who you are. Deep down, you're a beautiful person, and that is what a manhig needs to always believe and practice. And, says in Nesivos Shalom, if a manhig lacks that belief in the congregation and the flock, then he really will not be able to perform the task of uplifting the people and leading them. And the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says on the Gemara, Masechta Rosh Hashanah, Daf Chav Gimel Omid Beis, Me'olam lo yiro'asa chama pegimasa shel levana. And what the Gemara over there is talking about is we're talking about the solar cycles and the lunar cycles, but the sun never sees the deficient side of the moon. In other words, wherever the sun is shining, that part of the moon always looks whole. That's what that Gemara is. But the Baal Shem Tov says on that Gemara, a drush, and he says that Chama, the sun, denotes the mashpia. The sun is who's always shining. The sun denotes the person and the one who is being mashpia, the one who gives off light. And the Levana is the Talmud. The Levana, the moon, is the Mekabel, because the Levana gets the light only from the sun. The one receiving the influence. So the Gemara says, Me'olam le'rasa chama b'gimasa shel Levana. The Baal Shem Tov tells us that it's aser for the chama, for the teacher, for the Rebbe, for the Rav, for the leader, whatever you are, to see actual deficiencies in their congregants or students. Me'olam, that they didn't see pigimasa. They understood, and we know, of course they know that there are problems and people do things wrong. But it doesn't represent what the person is. And if they do see it that way, they cannot and they should not be leading or teaching. And that is Rabbi Trank Zatzal's lesson in the Nesivos Shalom lesson of this week. And it goes without saying that, of course, the mashpia doesn't have to have his head in the sand. The mashpia could know, the Rebbe could know, the teacher could know good and well the faults and deficiencies of the Mekabel, of the student, of the congregant. But in order to bring a person back up together with the leader has to know that he can raise that person right back out. What a person did wrong does not represent what they are. It might be a problem, but it's a problem that can be helped. And it definitely does not define the person. So the Gemara says, like we said, the sun knows that the moon is deficient, that the moon doesn't look whole the whole month, but it doesn't see it as a pigam. It sees it as something that's going to come back. The moon will always become whole again. The moon will shine, so that when the sun looks at the moon, it doesn't say, look how deficient you are, look how much light you're missing. Of course not. The sun knows that it's just a temporary issue right now, that the sun is not shining directly, but if the sun gives the full influence, the moon will come back. It's just a blemish. But of course we believe that you can grow and you can come back from any place. To believe in the individual and to believe in Klal Yisrael as a whole. And that is why the Torah tells us here why Moshe Rabbeinu could not go into Eretz Yisrael for referring to Klal Yisrael as rebellious. And that's why the Pasuk tells us, Lochein, for that reason, Lo yisaviu es hakahol hazeh. Not because you did anything, but because you didn't believe in Klal Yisrael. You did not believe implicitly in the power, in the resilience, in the strength, in the beauty of Klal Yisrael, so then you can't lead Klal Yisrael. The leader has to believe totally in the people that he or she is leading. And the congregants and the kahal has to also believe that the leader can take them out. And the Nesivos Shalom tells us that this is one of the things that the Yetzer Hara works very, very hard on us, to clip our wings and not let us believe in others and ourselves as we should. To understand and to believe and to push the idea of how great every single person really, really is inside. The Yetzer Hara wants us to be down. The Yetzer Hara wants you to feel that if you did something wrong, it's over. You're not a good person anymore. That's what the Yetzer Hara wants you to believe. And that is really just the Atzas Yetzer Hara. It's meant to get you down. And the Nesivos Shalom tells us that the Yetzer Hara wants most of all, everybody does things wrong. Everybody does things that are not perfect. But what the Yetzer Hara wants most is that afterwards you should be depressed. That afterwards you should not believe in yourself. You should say, me, look what I did, look what I can do. No! So you have a problem, so you work on it. But you believe in yourself. The leader has to believe in you. And the relationship has to go back and forth. And because that was missing here with Moshe Rabbeinu, Yan lo yamantem, you didn't believe implicitly. You didn't believe, Lochein lo yisaviu b'nei Yisrael, you're not going to be able to bring Klal Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael. And that really, really was the problem. And that is really why when Moshe Rabbeinu said, Shimu no hamoirim, he referred to Klal Yisrael as rebellious people. Then Moshe Rabbeinu, you don't believe in them. You can't be the leader. Let's learn this lesson, the lesson that Rabbi Train taught us over all the years, that every person is so beautiful. And what you see a person doing in front of your eyes, there's so much more going on behind the scenes. People are complex. People are very deep. People inside are so good. They're so very good. Not everybody's in total control of themselves always. Not everyone has the strength for everything always. But people are essentially good, and there is so much good in every person. Don't refer to a person as someone who's bad or rebellious. They just do something wrong. Tomorrow they're going to be a lot better. Let's learn that lesson, and may it taka be a chus for the neshama of Rabbi Train Zatzal.